I'm bored. Let's read a book. Oh!
After 2 days of riding through the boring hills of southern Gallus, 2 days of avoiding towns, and 2 days of dried fruit and travel bread, and hard cheese, and stream water, I was ready to leave Gallus. Only twice had we had to leave the road to avoid the hard-riding troops of the prefect. In both cases, the cavalry detachments were headed toward Kyphros, not back to Vinard. On one other occasion, we caught up with 3 wagons filled with supplies, and I had to sneak around them. Except for that time, I rode openly without shields, feeling that the locals wouldn't care who rode by, and that using order might call more wizardly attention to me than necessary. Late on that second day, we came to the first bridge over South Brook, a structure half timber, half stone, which required 3 spans to cross the slow-flowing water. But it was past mid-morning the next day before we reached the second bridge, a single stone span. With that second bridge over the South Brook came the remainders of war. The odor of smoke drifted toward me first, faint, like the leftover burnt wood smell in an unclean fireplace that I stood unused over the summer. Acrid, like charred leather, like the hides left from burning diseased animals. Pervasive, like the unseasonable clouds and fog that had clung to Freetown. Gerlach whinnied and tossed his head. I know if it smells that bad to me, it's worse for you. His steps clattered on the paving stones of the bridge, echoing into the morning. The echoes rebounding from the stone walls of the bridge were the only sounds. Even the insects were hushed. Not a single bird call warbled or whistled through the air. I shivered. Beyond the bridge, the road began to wind and climb toward the not-so-distant hills beneath the little Eastthorns. Everything was relative, I supposed. Without having seen the Eastthorns, I would have found the dark slopes on the horizon impressive. Now they just appeared as another barrier. The hills belonged to the Autarch, which meant that we were nearing the border between Gallus and Kyphros. With the wind from the south came more of that lingering acrid/sweet odor of ash and charred hide. Gerlach woofed again as he carried me uphill. The browning grasses beyond the road edge were damp, and not with dew. Gerlach's hoof left clear imprints in the dark red clay of the road. Whatever rain had fallen the night before had not carried much beyond the South Brook, or the hills of the little Eastthorns. The sky was a crystal blue and cloudless, promising one of those late fall days that reminded me more of summer than the approaching winter. The distant call of the vulcros echoed through the stillness of morning. Ahead, slightly to my right, over the crests of perhaps 3 hills, circled 2 of the black birds. My hand edged toward my staff, which I had not bothered to conceal. Sun was a white-yellow point in the sky, somehow not really connected to the damp road clay, the circling scavengers, or to me. Gerlach was thirsty, and I pulled up on the reins and guided him back off the road and down toward the shore of the placid river, stopping on a sandy stretch not much wider than Gerlach's length. From a half-submerged log, a small turtle glared at us, and scuttled off his perch. Plop! Only a faint rippled pattern even marked that the turtle had been there. I dismounted, looping the reins over the saddle, and let Gerlach do his own drinking. My eyes returned to the vulcros circling in the distance, but the calls had come from the closer birds. Closing my eyes to see what I could with my eyes, I cast out for the vulcros and the source of their interest. With my still sharpening sense of place, I could sense Gerlach placidly chewing leftover green grass by the riverbank. I could almost feel the color of the grass. Then it could have been my imagination. Beyond Gerlach, there were some near hills. Something was out there. I tried to protect my senses beyond Gerlach, beyond the river. more toward the hills ahead, in the direction of the Volcro's calls. Darkness and shiny brass and blued steel, the prefect's soldiers waiting ahead. Turning my attention behind me, back into Gallus, I searched. Found more darkness, more brass, and blued steel, riding up from behind me on the road that would lead them and me onward into Kyphros, and into more death on both sides. Wonderful, I had the prefect's troops in front of me and behind me. I opened my eyes and looked back across the bridge toward the rolling brown plains that I knew remained behind me. Behind the hill, then eastward at the light of the dusting snow, on the very tips of the uncovered rock of the little Eastthorns. Further to the west, to my right, just barely visible, a hint of gray clouds had begun to billow. As if to represent the chaos of the wizard who resided in the rocks of the unseen Westthorns that lay beyond those distant clouds. The Westthorns and Antonin would have to wait, at least for a while, until I had seen enough of Kyphros and the Autarch to ensure the answers to Brettle's questions and my own doubts. While it was just past mid-morning, the menace that had awaited me lay some distance ahead, and like Gerlach, I was thirsty. Hungry or not, I also needed to eat. The river was cold enough both in drinking and in washing the grime from my face to encourage my appetite, and to open some trail bread and dried fruit from 2 packages near the top of the saddlebags provided by Brettle. Being able to perceive what was inside closed sacks had some advantages in the dark, and when you didn't want to open sealed provisions. I grinned, thinking how I wondered how Justin always knew where things were. Still munching on the bread, I wondered about my soldiers ahead, about the Volcros, the ones I had not seen, only felt over the next hill, and those circling further away. The breeze from the south increased, and with it came the odor of ashes and charred hides. I had to concentrate to finish this slice of travel bread and dried apple. After filling my canteen and taking another long swallow of cold river water, I reclaimed Gerlach from his browsing. Come on, it's time to figure out what's ahead. Gerlach's steps became more skittery as we neared the top of the hill beyond the bridge. Just before the crest of the hill at the right edge of the road was a square limestone marker, not more than a knee high. Only 2 words, Kyphros, set above Gallus, with a line separating the 2. But someone had tried to scratch a skull next to the Kyphros. Catching my senses ahead of me, I could not feel living, except for the Volcros perched in a barren low tree just beyond the hilltop. We passed a marker and continued over the crest, the odor of ash even more pronounced in the light breeze. My guts nearly wrenched out of my body, and I swallowed hard to keep the just-eaten bread and fruit within me. Except for the 2 Volcros perched on the leafless trunk of a white oak, nothing lived. Except for the road, which bore a white dusting, a thick white ash covered the entire hillside nearly a K in every direction. So white that it looked like the blanket of snow. Only a few blasted tree trunks, all white oaks, poked through the calf-deep ash. A pair of Volcros flapped into the late morning sky, heading south toward those circling the higher hills. Gerlach whinnied. I didn't blame him as he pulled up short of the ash. Easy, easy. There was nothing there. My staff was cold to the touch, and nothing lived. Nothing. But I knew that the white ash represented the remains of men, women, horses, grasses, trees, birds, insects, and even fall flowers. My guts twisted again. He whinnied again. Easy, easy. We have to go on. More than I ever had to go on. Deeper into the war zone that was northern Kyphros. deeper into the destruction that seemed so unnecessary to me and so critical to Antonin and the White Wizards. "Come on," I patted his neck and flicked the reins. Skittish step by skittish step, Gerlach carried me straight down the ash-dusted road. At the bottom of the hill, the ash ended, almost as though the line had been drawn, and the fall grasses and the shrub brush resumed. The road clay was again damp, and I wondered if the rain had been created to damp the ash into place. I shook my head. Who knew why the Chaos Wizards did all they did? The echoing cry of the Volcro reminded me there was much more of the same or worse yet to come. At one time, the hills had been farmed. The stone pillars of fences remained, as did a few rotting split rails. Every so often we passed a chimney emerging from a thicket of bushes, or even standing alone and rising out of a hummock of grasses. The hills were not wild again, nor were they tame, but somewhere in between. Abandoned apple trees still ran in the orchard rows, with gasps showing those that had died and not been replaced. Taller blocks of mixed oaks, conifers, outlined the old woodlots, while scrub oak and redberry meadows indicated the once cleared fills. With each hill there were near circling Volcros, an underlying sense of white menace. To the west the clouds kept building. My stomach continued to churn. Finally I put a shield around me, not one that would keep me from being seen. Like me, any Chaos Wizard could have seen through a visual reflective shield. This shield would keep someone from throwing energies at me. Light is energy, and if I could keep the light from touching me, I ought to be able to keep from being turned into white ash. The only problem was that I still couldn't see with my eyes, because the shield kept light and energy from touching me. I wondered why I didn't cool off, but my body did generate heat. That brought up another question, like why is my body heat didn't fry me inside my shell? But I let my thoughts work on the shield, and the shield let energy escape. Could I buy a shield that worked both ways, letting no energy enter or escape? Probably, but for what reason? Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, please like, comment, and subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss out on any of my videos. See y'all in the next one. Goodbye!